This module Inventor will include instruction on how to create a presentation in the presentation panel. To start with, we'll need a couple of parts that we can import into the presentation panel. So we'll create a block with a pin. So we'll get started by moving our cursor to the upper left portion of the screen, and we'll left click on New. While the Create New File dialog box will appear, we'll left click on Standard Inventor Part, left click on Create, and we'll move our cursor to the upper left portion of the screen, left click on Start 2D Sketch. I'll move our cursor to the XY plane or the front plane. We'll left click, and then we'll start with just a rectangle. So we'll move our cursor to the upper middle portion of the screen, left click on the rectangle command, and we'll just drag a rectangle. Doesn't really have to be on the origin. We'll right click, left click on OK, left click on Dimension, left click on one of the lines on the side, and we'll enter a 1, and left click on the top line, enter a 1, then we'll right click, left click on OK. We'll move our cursor to the upper left portion of the screen, and we'll left click on Circle, and we want to put this circle right in the middle of the block. And the way we do that is move our cursor down just till you see one of the green dots. That's the midpoint of that line. Now, without clicking, I'm simply going to move my cursor along until dots from the bottom line midpoint appear, which is right there. As soon as you see both dotted lines coming off of each midpoint, you found the middle of the part. So you can left click once, drag the cursor up, left click, then right click, left click on OK, left click on Dimension, and left click on the edge of the circle. We'll enter 0.5, then we'll right click, left click on OK, right click again, finish sketch. Then I'm going to left click on Extrude, I'm going to left click on the profile, and I'll enter a 2, hit enter, and you should have something to look similar to what is shown here. Use the free orbit command to rotate it around and admire it somewhat. Then we'll right click, left click on OK, and I'm going to save that, and this will be block 3. And then left click on Save. Then we need to create a pin for this, so we'll start by moving our cursor to the upper left portion of the screen, and we'll left click on the New icon. The Create New File dialog box will appear. We'll left click on Standard Inventor Part, left click on Create. And we'll move our cursor to the upper left portion of the screen, and we'll left click on Start 2D Sketch. Move our cursor to the XY plane. We'll left click on Circle, and we'll just left click right here on the origin. And then we'll right click, left click on OK, left click on Dimension, left click on the very edge of the part, enter 0.5. And we'll right click, left click on OK, right click again, finish 2D sketch, left click on Extrude, we'll enter a 2, and we'll left click on OK, we'll left click on the little arrow next to I, save as, and this will be pin 3. I'll left click on Save As. Now we need to create an assembly with the block and the pin so that we can import that assembly into the presentation panel. So I'm going to move my cursor over the new little white piece of paper, left click, the Create New File dialog box will appear, and I'll left click on Standard Inventor Assembly, left click on Create, and then we'll drop this arrow down. Instead of place from content center, we just want to place. So we're going to place, and first we're going to start with block 3, left click on Open, and hooked to the cursor will be the block. And we don't need another block, so I'm going to hit the escape key. And then we'll left click on place again, and this time will be pin 3. And so hook to the cursor will be a pin. I'm going to left click once, then I'm going to hit the escape key. Then I'll move my cursor to the upper middle portion of the screen. I'm going to left click on constrain. Once the constrain dialog box comes up, I'm going to left click on the part as soon as I see the center line. I'm going to move my cursor inside the block's hole. Once I see that, I'm going to left click once. Inventor will snap that in there. We'll left click on apply and then cancel. And I'm going to slide the pin in here, and you notice that the block moves. That's because the block is not grounded. If you look over here in the part tree, there's no push pin for block 3. So I can either move my cursor over the block itself and right click and put a check next to grounded, or I can do it over here in the part tree. Well, I had the pin active when I did that, so it actually grounded the pin. So we'll move our cursor over block 3 in the tree, right click, left click on grounded. Now you can see the push pin next to block 3, which means it's grounded. I'm going to collapse this for right now. And when I move my cursor to the pin, now the pin will move in and out and the block doesn't move. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to left click on the little I, save as, and this will be assembly 4. It says save the dependence, yes. Then I'm going to move my cursor to the little white piece of paper again. Left click on new. The create new file dialog box will appear, and this time we're going to pick standard inventor part. This time we're going to pick presentation. Left click on create, and we're going to left click on assembly 4 and pick open. So here is the assembly that we created in the assembly area. So first thing we're going to do is we'll left click on tweak components, and then we left click down here on 1 down in this play area storyboard. Left click on 1. We'll move our cursor over the pin, left click once, and this origin will appear. So I'm going to left click on the active arrow, and that is the Z axis. I'm going to drag the part down. Then I'm going to move my cursor to the storyboard again. I'm going to left click on 2. I'm going to move my cursor to the Y axis. Once it becomes highlighted, I'm going to left click once. I'll drag the part up. Then I come down here and left click on the storyboard again on number 3. I'm going to left click on the X arrow. Once it becomes highlighted, I'm going to left click and drag the part over. Then I'm going to right click and I'm going to left click on OK. Then I'll left click on the rewind back to storyboard beginning icon. And then I'm going to left click on play. And the pin comes out and floats around. And you could do this to where the parts actually come together as opposed to disassembling. But that is how you create a presentation in the presentation panel.